Chapter 5687. Resist Li Xian's eyes were even colder. So, they really want to cross our country and enter Laos, and the border town is a place they must pass through. Yes, there's one more thing that we need to confirm. It's also a very important hurdle. Show the photos of the 4 criminals to little Bua. Let him identify the stranger who strangled him, and see if he is the person in the photos. I'm pretty sure it's the 4 of them. Li Xian breathed a sigh of relief. The 4 Burmese fugitives had committed heinous crimes, and were even more ruthless. Everyone was worried that they would commit crimes in our country. Once something happened, it would be irreversible damage. Therefore, they had to capture or kill the 4 Burmese fugitives before irreversible damage occurred. The 2 of them climbed over the stone wall. Lu Weihe and the other 2 armed police soldiers looked at the 2 of them. Li Xian used the local language to ask the villagers to return to the house and sit down. They needed to ask little Bua some things. Li Xian was a very serious armed police soldier. When he spoke, his expression was tense and his eyes were very firm. As soon as he opened his mouth, the whole atmosphere suddenly became a little stiff and tense. The surrounding villagers suddenly fell several times and did not even dare to speak. They all looked at Li Xian, feeling very uneasy. Did you find something bad? Otherwise, why would he be so serious? Perhaps it was because Li Xian's expression was too serious when she spoke earlier that little Bua's mother was a little resistant. Hearing this, she immediately hugged her child tightly and looked at Li Xian warily. Then, she silently walked to her husband's side and whispered something. Lu Wei was close to the couple. When he heard what the hostess said, he quickly explained in the local language, "Don't worry, we are just going to ask a few questions. We won't take little Bua away." The male owner glanced at Lu Wei and spoke to his wife in a low voice. As the husband spoke, Yi Qian saw the female owner's vigilance gradually lessen. The surrounding villagers also relaxed slightly. Although they felt that it was a very serious matter that someone wanted to kill little Bua, they did not realize that danger was right beside them. And this danger could very well be the danger of the entire village being wiped out. Although Tang Xian and the rest of the village officials were aware of the danger, they did not realize the extent of the danger. If it were not for the frightening seal on little Bua's neck, even Tang Xian would not have thought of the danger. Life in the mountains was too comfortable. Although it was at the border in recent years, our country had increased the intensity of patrols and grasped the situation of every village one by one. Therefore, the small villages in the border town were very stable and there were no major incidents. If it was before the 1990s, there would still be some major events that happened in the small village. For example, the planting of poppies was something that villages like this border town and deep in the mountains and forests had to do before. Now, even the small village where Yi Qian lived had done so in the early 90s. Later on, some ideological work was done to make the villagers aware of the dangers of poppies. After more than 10 years of unremitting efforts, the present results were achieved. Even if they lived in poverty, they would not feel that they were in danger. Instead, they would think that danger was far away from them. Actually, that wasn't the case. Danger seemed to be far away, but when it came at the drop of a hat, there was no time to prepare. If it were not for Ma Gang's intervention, little Bua's little life would have already bid farewell to the blue sky and white clouds. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you'll find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5687, Panda Resistance. Chapter 5688. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5688, Drenched in Cold Sweat. Urban Romance. Chapter 5688, Dripping with Cold Sweat. Lu Wei took out the photos. Little Bua glanced at them and pointed at one of the photos. "Uncle, it's him. He's the one who pinched me here." His voice was soft as he used his hands to strangle his own neck. As soon as he did that, the face of the mistress, who was hugging him, immediately changed. She quickly reached out to grab little Bua's hand and told him not to do such an uncomfortable thing. Number 3237, born in Myanmar, known as Unyielding, the serial killer who caused several massacres in Myanmar. He was known for his cruelty, ruthlessness, and inhumanity. Lu Wei smiled amiably as he asked little Bua, Little Bua nodded with certainty. As for Ma Gang, Little Bua did not point him out because, in Little Bua's memories, Ma Gang did not exist at all. At that time, he was too scared. How could a scared child pay attention to his surroundings? He only cared about crying. The villagers looked at Ong Ye's photo, and everyone's reaction was the same. Don't let them see this guy. If they see him, kill him with a chopper. Pu Chun's villagers had a ruthlessness that was hard to erase. This was a ruthlessness that had been passed down from generation to generation. In the past, they really weren't afraid of killing people, nor did they think that killing people was against the law. Later on, as the township administration was put in place, they went to the village to propagate for decades, and only then did they manage to get the villagers to agree. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. We know that the law exists, and we know that it is wrong to kill. There are 4 of them, and they're all fugitives from Myanmar. They have committed heinous crimes in their own country, and their hands are stained with countless lives. This Onyie, who tried to kill Little Bua, is the most brutal serial killer in Myanmar in decades. The other 3 were arrested by the Burmese police for another matter. They're all felons who escaped into our country. The Burmese police hope that our country can help them and bring all 4 of them to justice. It was only then that the villagers realized how dangerous it was to brush past them. There were guns and people. Little Bua had almost been killed. The mistress hugged Little Bua tightly. Even though the danger had passed, her body was still trembling slightly. When the village officials heard this, they broke out in a cold sweat. They entered the village to do ideological work, but they never thought that there would be for fugitives running away from them. The senior township official calmed himself down and asked Lu Wei, "What about now? Have they gone far? Are you here to capture the 4 of them?" This was the problem that he should be most concerned about. What if he didn't go far and came back? Lu Wei answered seriously, "It's only been about 2 hours since the incident. They should have already left, and it's unlikely that they'll return. The 5 of us are indeed here to capture the 4 of them. The 4 of them are all ruthless and vicious. They even dared to kill the police officers of their own country. There are only 5 of you. Why didn't you bring more people? It's too dangerous with just the 5 of you. Yeah, it's too dangerous. There are only 4 of them. You even said that they had guns. Even if we hide in the mountains and shoot at you, you won't be able to find us. Do you want us to find a few strong men from our village to follow you into the mountains to look for them? We are mountain people, and we have brute strength. We won't have a problem taking down 1 or 2 of them." Just as one of the villagers suggested this, Little Bua's father immediately said, "I'll go with them. If I don't catch them, I won't be at ease." Just now, his son had almost been killed. He had to catch them with his own hands to feel at ease. Chapter 5689. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chase, urban romance, pursue and attack it was impossible for the villagers to follow them. Li Xian, Lu Wei, and the other 2 armed policemen were very clear about the roads in the mountains. Everyone needed to patrol once. How could they not know that they had to patrol 12 times a year? He knew it better than the villagers. At this moment, the township government officials stepped in to stop the villagers from going into the mountains together. Yi Qian and the others could not afford to waste too much time. Since they had confirmed that the 4 criminals had passed through the village, they had to hurry up and follow them. After informing the villagers of the information of the 4 felons, and having the village government officials come forward to persuade them, Yi Qian and the other 4 did not stay for long. They immediately followed from the back mountain of Little Bua's house. It was not easy to chase after a criminal in a primeval forest. Hiding a few people in the vast mountains was not a problem at all. Sometimes, it really depended on intuition to determine whether the criminal was nearby. As for Yi Qian, Li Xian, and the others, as long as they had a general direction, no matter how difficult the path ahead was, they would continue to search without hesitation until they killed all the criminals. After entering the back of the mountain, the 5 of them quickly found the traces left behind by the 4 felons. From the fallen leaves, the shrubs that were stepped on, and the short branches that were abnormally split to the sides, They were all evidence to determine whether or not the felons had passed through here. Southwest. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. 2. Li Xian takes out a compass and presses the corners of her mouth to Laos. There are still 3 villages that they will pass by, but they are all at the foot of the mountain. It is unlikely that they will go down the mountain again, but we can't rule out a similar situation today. Yi Qian nodded, his face as dark as water. They need to fill their stomachs. I'm afraid they came down the mountain today to look for food. But after the incident with little Bua, with their alertness, it's unlikely that they'll descend the mountain again. They'll only hurry on with their journey. What I'm worried about now is that this village is a tourist area. In order to save time, they might blend in with the tourist attractions and choose to leave by means of transportation. Once they enter the city, the danger will be infinitely greater. In other words, if the 5 of them wanted to control the danger, they had to kill the 4 felons before they entered the tourist area. The shortest time we took to find the criminals in the mountains was 12 days, and that was because we had the help of the little warrior. He was also Li Xian and Lu Wei's comrade-in-arms. His surname was Hong, and his name was a little cute. His first name was Meow Meow, so he could only let his comrade-in-arms call him Hong Meow. The little soldiers he was talking about were the police dogs in the team. Every time they chased after a criminal in the jungle, they could not do without their help. For the armed police, police dogs were not dogs, but little comrades who fought side by side with them. This time, he did not bring a police dog, mainly because he was worried that the police dog would be in danger. Yi Qian laughed and said, "Without the help of the police dogs, we can only rely on ourselves. If they follow the tracks they left behind, they would definitely catch up. Let's go. Head southwest." Yi Qian was very familiar with jungle warfare, so he was not worried. When Li Xian, Lu Wei, Hong Meow Meow, and another armed police soldier named Fu Heng saw this, they all smiled, hugged their guns tightly, and hurried on with their journey. That's right, without the help of their little comrade-in-arms, they could definitely do it. There would be no problem. At the same time, the 4 felons who had left the village were rushing through the forest. They walked even faster than before. Sometimes branches would hit them in the face, but they didn't stop. They kept walking towards the southwest direction. They saw a helicopter flying over them, which made the 4 of them feel very uneasy. Chapter 5690. This time, those who fought side by side with Yi Qian were all elites of the armed police force. All of them were agile. After entering the jungle, they shuttled through the leaves like ghosts. At the border city's border defense building, Zheng Weiwei looked at the 5 red dots on the satellite map. He pursed his lips and straightened his back. He was so serious that his subordinates didn't dare to speak loudly. They have entered the fault zone. An armed police officer said softly as he reported the location of the 5 red dots to Zheng Weiwei. There are many cliffs in the fault zone. If the criminals appear in the fault zone, it will be easier for them to find traces of the criminals. A fault zone was a place where the mountains were broken. It was difficult for people to notice it when they were walking in the mountains. If they didn't notice it and accidentally stepped on air, they would fall straight down. If they were lucky, they would be caught by the trees and vines that grew under the fault zone. If they were unlucky, they would break all their bones and injure their internal organs. They would then die under the fault zone. The fault zone was very dangerous, but it was very beneficial for the search, because you only had one choice, and the second choice was very likely to lead to a dead end. Zheng Weiwei took off his military cap and scratched his head with one hand. He said in a deep voice, "Tell them to be careful. Don't get yourself killed because of a bunch of bastards." Chasing after a few Burmese criminals and sacrificing their own soldiers was the last thing Zheng Weiwei wanted to see. Moreover, he was very worried about Yi Qian. He was very, very worried. "Contact them via satellite. I'll talk to them," Zheng Weiwei said in a deep voice. He had to talk to Yi Qian. It was a good thing to be hot-blooded, but he had to ensure his own safety first. He couldn't let anything happen to his comrade's daughter. "Yes." The armed police officer in charge of the communication responded in a capable voice. He immediately contacted his comrades who were deep in the forest. Yi Jian was talking to Li Xian. The direction we're looking for is right. This is the latest trace of footsteps. Here, she pointed at a bush, her beautiful face filled with coldness. Someone stopped here and accidentally reached out to break the buds growing on the bush. This required a very careful observation to discover. Li Exin, who had moved closer to see the new marks, withdrew his gaze and sighed in a low voice. No wonder you were only slowly searching around here. So you were looking for these subtle marks. Sometimes, the subtle traces are the clues we need to find. Yi Qian smiled. They're also the clues that we tend to overlook. Reporting squad leader. Soldier Hong Miao came over and handed the satellite phone to Li Exin. The detachment called. Li Exin hurriedly took over the satellite phone and spoke a few words to Detachment Zheng to report their latest situation. The target has always been in front of us. Our search continues. There is no deviation in direction, and there are no injuries. Everything is normal. Everything was normal, and everything was fine. Zheng Weiwei gave a few instructions and then asked Li Exin to pass the satellite phone to Yi Qian. He needed to speak to Yi Qian. Yi Qian took the satellite phone and heard Zheng Weiwei's deep voice. Little Yi, you've arrived at the fault zone. This is a very dangerous place. There are many cliffs that are hidden by the forest and don't seem to have any problems. You must be careful during the search. Don't let any accidents happen. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you'll find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5691. The Great Red Star will live up to your expectations. Yi Jian, who was listening, sighed softly in her heart. Her mother's comrade really took good care of her. Zheng Weiwei, who was staring at Little Red and Black, said seriously, "You must follow the four of them closely. They have a lot of experience fighting in the jungle, and their survival skills are also quite strong. They can tell if there's a fault in front of them. I just told Li Exin to arrange for you to be on guard at the back." Li Exin, Lu Wei, and the other three were all elites under Zheng Weiwei. Zheng Weiwei naturally knew how strong his elites were. Zheng Weiwei only knew how strong Yi Qian was from two sources. One was from Captain Deng's words, and the other was from Yi Qian's personal information. Zheng Weiwei was a little worried because he didn't have a complete understanding of her. Yi Qian, who was focused in front of her, smiled and replied, "Weiwei, I once went through a large jungle alone and spent the spring festival in the jungle alone. When I came out, the camouflage I was wearing was so tattered that it looked like it was 10 years old. Don't worry about me. I've trained in the Fault Mountains, so I'm not unfamiliar with jungle warfare." Yi Qian was very touched by Zheng Weiwei's care, but she really didn't need it. Moreover, she was one with Li Exin and the other three armed police officers. Take note. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. How could she let them face danger directly while she hid behind them? This didn't suit her principles of cooperation with her comrades, and it also didn't suit her principles of doing things. Zheng Weiwei still wanted to say a few more words, but he seemed to have thought of something. A hint of a smile flashed across his serious face. He paused for a few seconds. "Xiao Yi, I'm looking forward to your exciting performance. I'm looking forward to it." Back then, Hongmei's military capabilities were outstanding in all aspects. Xiao Yi was her daughter, and her daughter seemed to have surpassed her master. He was looking forward to it. "I won't be innocent of your trust," Yi Qian replied with a straight face. She wouldn't let Zheng Weiwei's trust in her be for nothing, and she didn't want to leave any regrets in the place where her mother had fought so hard. After ending the call, Zheng Weiwei pulled up his office chair and sat down. He stared at the little red dot on the electronic screen for a long time. In the boundless forest, silhouettes shuttled back and forth. The branches and leaves swayed. Some were fleeing, and some were pursuing. Who would win and who would lose was still unknown. Without any communication device, the four Burmese criminals were already exhausted. When Ma Gang pulled the murderer Ong yet out of the pit again, she lost her patience and showed her ruthlessness for the first time in front of the three men. 3237. If you continue to be so careless, the three of us will definitely not save you. You've already exhausted too much of our strength. Listen carefully. I'll say it again. From now on, You won't be able to get any help from the three of us. She needed to leave this place. She needed to go to the border town to contact General Min Lai. She needed to live well. She definitely couldn't let herself be implicated by an idiot. Anya, who had escaped from death again, gasped for air. Facing Ma Gang's warning, a hint of gloominess flashed across Anya's eyes. He suppressed the anger in his heart and answered Ma Gang, I'm also very afraid of accidents, but this place, we can't go here, and we can't go there. I also want to avoid it. Since you're afraid, then follow 7,256. He's a Kachin who lives in the mountains. He knows the dangers and the depths of the mountains better than you do. As soon as Ma finished speaking, he asked the Kachin man number 7256, there's a big problem. We're only taking one path now, and there are cliffs on both sides. If the Chinese armed police really catch up with us, they'll easily find our tracks. Chapter 5692. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5692. Urban Romance. Chapter 5692. Betrayalangi reminded Ma Gang, which made her breath tighten. She had ignored such an important question. Looking at the Kachin people, Ma Gang spoke very slowly. If they find any traces, all our efforts will be in vain. We might even die in the hands of the Chinese armed police. The Kachin man did not answer immediately. Instead, he waved the gun in his hand. Why should we take them? Are they only responsible for blocking the branches for us? Ma Gang looked at the gun he was swinging and narrowed his eyes. Do you mean that we're really going to be caught up and fight with the Chinese armed police? What else? Do you chat with them? Anya spat. His twisted eyes were full of madness and paranoia. I haven't killed these guys yet. If we can kill them, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Just thinking about it makes me excited. This was a lunatic who was so stupid that he didn't think about the consequences. Ma Gang refused to talk to a lunatic. She turned to the man with the number 5367. She didn't know if he was a staff member or a Vietnamese. What do you think? The Chinese armed police are very difficult to deal with. If they catch up to us, do we have any other choice? 5367 had the same thoughts as the Kachin people. He did not want to fight with the Chinese armed police. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. However, if they really had to face it, would they have any other choice? They had no choice. If they wanted to leave this place alive, they had to kill first, just like when they escaped. Ma Gang's expression was cold and unsightly. The Kachin man glanced at her and said coldly, Don't forget, you were the one who guided us. If she had known that she would need to pass through the Fault Mountain Range, she would not have chosen this path. She would have come out directly from the previous village. Unfortunately, it was too late for regrets. He could only continue forward. The air in the dense forest was not very good. It was humid and stuffy, and there were all kinds of rotten smells mixed together. Ma Gang, who was already in a bad mood, no longer leaned against the tree to rest. Instead, he started to move on by himself. Even a woman like her could grit her teeth and continue on her way. Naturally, the three men didn't rest either. Escaping for their lives was more important. As long as they truly escaped, they would be able to have a good rest. As for Yi Qian and the others, it was just as Detachment Zheng had said. Although it was very dangerous for them to be in the Fault Mountain Range, it also greatly reduced the scope of their search. They did not need to split up and search again. The four escaped felons avoided the two cliffs. Their route and direction did not change. This saved Yi Qian and the others a lot of time in their search. Furthermore, the visibility in this part of the forest was quite low. As the sky gradually darkened, the light in the forest became darker and deeper than outside. This made it even more difficult for Yi Qian and the others to search. The light was getting dimmer and dimmer, and it was getting harder and harder to find traces. Their physical strength was also depleting with time. However, they had no way to stop, nor could they find a better way. They could only continue forward. While there was still light, the five of them increased their speed and tried to shorten the distance between them and the four felons. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, The light in the forest was so dim that they could only see the silhouettes of the people nearby. Any further, and it would be pitch black. Yi Qian, who was always on high alert, slowed down his pace under Li Xian's signal. The second deep hole. Li Wei carefully looked at the deep hole that had appeared again. These deep holes did not seem deep. Although they were covered by vines, they were actually unfathomably deep. If there were no vines covering them, they would be separated by yin and yang. Chapter 5693. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5693. Urban Romance. Chapter 5693. Secret Service. After careful observation, Li Xian's face showed a trace of excitement. The pulp flowing out of the broken branches is still liquid. It hasn't solidified yet. We are not far from them. After chasing them for several hours, they finally felt that they were getting closer and closer to the four felons. Yi Qian gently touched the rifle in his hand. His eyes were as cold as ice. Only when the light in the forest had completely disappeared and the surroundings were shrouded in darkness did the five of them have a short 10-minute break. During the break, Li Xian didn't forget to take out the electronic map. She gnawed on the hardtack that was so dry that it hurt her throat. She swiped her finger across the map. We've reached the middle section of the fault. Our walking speed hasn't been slow. The four felons are the fastest, so they should be here. After resting for 10 minutes, we'll continue our search. After shortening the distance, we need to be even more cautious. Don't forget, the four felons have guns. We are in the dark now, but once we are exposed, we will be in the light, and they will be in the dark. Furthermore, there was a fault in this area, so they had to pay attention to their feet. Don't fall off the cliff. The danger was getting closer and closer to them, and the atmosphere was getting tenser and tenser. Yi Qian, who was in charge of keeping watch, looked around with cold eyes and split some of her attention to listen to what Li Xian was saying. She listened to everything Li Xian said without missing a single word. And, NB friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. SP. Her tiredness also made Li Xian and the other four-armed police soldiers look at her in a new light. During the entire search, the female soldier Yi Jian had made a lot of movements. Judging from her actions, she was a female soldier with experience in jungle warfare. There were still 3 minutes left before the 10-minute break. Lu Wei glanced at Yi Qian, who was on guard duty. He moved his lips slightly and asked Yi Qian in a very low voice, "How many jungle combat experiences have you had?" Why actual combat experience? This was because Yi Qian had the familiar scent of blood on him. It was the scent of someone who had been stained with blood. Yi Qian thought for a moment before answering, "Quite a few times, but I haven't really calculated it." "What about the nearest one?" Lu Wei asked again. He was now very curious about Yi Qian. It was rare for a female soldier to have real experimental experience in the army. Yi Qian thought about the battle with his comrade from the Snowfield Brigade at the end of the year. It was very close, less than a month ago, but it wasn't a jungle battle. As soon as he said that, the four-armed police soldiers were stunned. Less than a month? What happened last December? They were very surprised, but they knew that it wasn't convenient for them to continue asking. The only reason he was willing to tell them the truth was probably to make them feel more at ease. She told them that she wasn't a burden and that she had real combat experience. Yi Qian was indeed thinking this way. She didn't want Li Xian and the other soldiers to not believe her at the most critical moment. With Yi Qian's words, Li Xian and the other soldiers felt a lot more at ease. The four of them gave Yi Qian a thumbs up to show their admiration. However, it was a little too dark. No matter how good Yi Qian's eyesight was, she could only see the movements of the four soldiers, but she couldn't tell what they were doing. The short break quickly passed, and the five soldiers once again moved forward in the dark. They knew that they were getting closer and closer to the criminal in front of them, so the five of them moved very slowly. They tried their best not to make any noise when they passed through the forest to avoid being discovered. After about half an hour of moving forward, Yi Qian, who was with Li Xian, let out the chirping of a night bird. They discovered something and stopped moving forward. Chapter 5694. The Great Red Star lives up to your expectations. They didn't find any traces of the four felons, but there was another smell in the damp and decaying air. It came from a human bladder and was mainly made up of water. This was the smell that Yi Qian smelled. It was very faint, hidden in the damp and stuffy air, floating faintly. If it was any other time, she would naturally hold her breath when she smelled this smell. But now, the smell in the air didn't make her hold her breath. Instead, it made her very excited. There's the smell of urine in the air. It's very faint. Yi Qian finished speaking in a low voice. Hong Miao's nose twitched. Wearing night vision goggles, he looked at the slender figure hidden in front of him and whispered, "Why can't I smell it?" Not only did Hong Miao not smell it, Li Exan, Lu Wei, and the other soldier Jiao Xiaodu didn't smell it either. They only smelled one kind of smell, and that was the damp and stuffy smell that only came from the dense forest. Yi Qian, who had a very keen sense of smell, had helped Xia Jinyuan find the suspect a long, long time ago, on the day he first met Xia Jinyuan. Now, she was very sure that there were traces left behind by the felons nearby. There is, but it's very faint. It hasn't completely evaporated. When the sun comes up tomorrow, the smell will be even stronger. Yi Qian, who was resting against a tree, chuckled softly and teased the four soldiers. "Who knows? You might have stepped on it." Hong Miao silently lowered his head. "Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time." He looked at where he was standing and took a deep breath. Yes, he definitely didn't step on it. He didn't smell it. He didn't smell it at all. Stop smelling it. It's still fresh. Your nose can't smell it. Jiao Xiaotu, who was standing with his back pressed against Yi Qian's, heard his comrade's movements. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. "If I really stepped on it, then I stepped on it too." The two of them were in the middle. Yi Qian and Li Exan were in front, while Lu Wei was guarding the rear. Lu Wei stealthily changed to a new hiding spot. He hid in a place with dense foliage. With his fingers on the microphone, he said with a smile, "I didn't smell it from behind. Yi Qian, maybe you've already stepped on some fresh liquid." He did not pay attention to whether or not he stepped on Yi Qian. However, Lu Wei was right. It was indeed a fresh liquid. He had just stayed here not long ago, and it was very dewy at night. In addition, the border town had been drizzling these past few days, so the smell was very faint. Tomorrow, as the water evaporated, the urea precipitated, and the ammonia gas would become stronger and stronger. By then, the four of them would have run far away. The other party had probably thought of this as well, which was why they didn't care about leaving any traces behind. Unfortunately, they ran into Yi Qian, who had a keen sense of smell. The matter that they had to hold their breaths became evidence of how far away they were. From the sap flowing out of the broken branches that they saw around the deep pit, the light and unpleasant smell, and the time they had left the village, they could roughly estimate that the distance between them and the scene was no more than 3 kilometers. If the distance between them and the scene was no more than 3 kilometers, it indicated that a fierce battle was not far away. The closer they got, the more they could not stop moving forward. They had to completely see the figures of the four felons. The world of the night vision goggles was a black and white world. Other than black and white, there was nothing else to hide. On the tree, a black shadow suddenly leaped over their heads. It was agile and light, and soon disappeared. It was a small animal that lived in the jungle. It could be a red panda or a monkey. In the dense tropical rainforest, it was not uncommon to see small movements of foraging for food at night. However, due to the special circumstances when a small black shadow suddenly passed over their heads, it was inevitable that their hearts would jump a few times. Chapter 5695. Infighting Yi Qian, who had a strong psychological quality, swallowed and continued to move carefully with Li Xian. Soon, they forgot about the unknown little black shadow. The five of them stopped communicating with each other and walked extremely slowly. They kept moving in the same direction as the four felons. Their movements were so light that they didn't even disturb the night birds. After about 400 meters, they suddenly heard the sound of night birds flying in front of them. It was not one, but several birds. They were chirping and flapping their wings, rushing into the dark night. The five people walking in the black and white world looked up at the same time and looked at the sky where the branches intertwined and divided the whole sky into pieces of different shapes and sizes. Unyielding's voice was very soft. The night birds are flying in the sky. It's very likely that they are in front of us. They have been rushing without rest. He walked with great difficulty, and if he wasn't careful, he would disturb the birds sleeping at night. Let's keep moving. Lixian withdrew her gaze from the sky and looked colder and colder. She hoped that it was really the four felons who made the noise. At this time, Ma Gang's whole face darkened. The gun in her hand instantly stopped the noise again. 3,237. How many times have you made a mistake? You've implicated us again and again. Do you want to die? Sometimes he fell into a deep pit and needed them to pull him up. Sometimes he broke the branches, and the crackling sound startled the birds that were resting at night. He made mistakes again and again, which made Ma Gang completely lose patience with Angie. If it weren't for the fact that shooting would cause more noise, she would really shoot this damn guy to death. Unyielding, who was dizzy from the fall, had not recovered from the shock. When he looked up, he saw the cold gun against his head. The anger in his heart was no less than Ma Gang's, and the killing intent was no less than Ma Gang's. He said a swear word, which probably meant something like, "fuck you." Ma Gang immediately loaded the gun without hesitation. The felon closest to him, number 5367, had been guarding against Ma Gang, who pointed the gun at people. When he heard that the gun was loaded, he held Ma Gang's wrist without saying a word. Think about the consequences if you shoot. You don't want to die, and we don't want to die either. Shoot. I'm not afraid of death. If you have the ability, come, shoot me. I'll F*King, send my F*King head over for you to open. Angie was not a good-tempered person. He had a gun pointed at his head. If he backed down now, he would not be a man. He leaned forward and used his head to push against the muzzle of the gun. Even when his head hurt, he did not retract his head. 5367 raised his foot and kicked the stupid Angie down. Angie, who was in a tight spot, did not guard against 5367. The kick made him fall back hard. With his swish sound, he hurriedly stretched out his hands to grab the branches on both sides to stabilize his body. 5367 did not care about Angie. He pressed down on Ma Gang's wrist and pointed the gun at the ground. You are a very smart woman. A smart woman shouldn't make stupid mistakes. Bringing him along with you was the wrong decision you made in the beginning. You thought it was ruthless enough to kill a few more people. He only killed people around the city. He has never entered the mountains. You, me, and the Kachin people, the three of us have come and gone from the mountains. We are very used to the mountain roads and the night roads. End of chapter. Chapter 5696. The 10,000 Miles Red Star lived up to your expectations. Chapter 5696. Revenge Ma Gang clenched her teeth tightly. That's right, bringing along a stupid thing like 3237 was indeed her biggest mistake. The regretful Ma Gang put away her gun and no longer pointed it at Unyielding. She was only trying to scare Unyielding. She didn't really want to shoot him. She knew very well what the consequences would be. Not shooting didn't mean that Ma Gang would let Unyielding go. She already had the intention to kill Unyielding. Are we still leaving? If not, find a place to rest as soon as possible. Rest well, and we'll leave tomorrow. The Kachin man spoke. He didn't care at all who shot him. They weren't his people, so it didn't matter to him who died. Now, what he cared about the most was whether to leave or not. If they didn't leave, then they would rest. He was very tired. He was already exhausted and didn't want to leave. Ma Gang also didn't want to leave. However, when she thought of the helicopter flying overhead during the day, she immediately said in a deep voice, "No, let's continue." After saying that, she turned to Unyielding, who didn't say anything else. You'll die sooner or later because of your own stupidity. If she didn't get rid of him, she didn't know if he would cause any more trouble. She was used to killing people with guns or knives in bed. She didn't know how to kill people directly. Ma Gang narrowed her eyes and planned to kill him with a borrowed knife. And NB, please note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes. The helicopter that flew by during the day was covered in camouflage. That was a military helicopter from the Chinese Army. My boss said that the Chinese armed police will often patrol the mountains, especially during Chinese festivals. Their patrols are even closer than usual, and they are vigilant everywhere. If there is an armed police patrolling behind us, 3237, your stupidity will definitely attract the armed police. You've already done it several times. Once there's a beginning, there won't be an end. You'll definitely do it again. I'm sure of it. After saying a lot, the last part was the main point. With armed police patrolling, they would do it again and attract the attention of the armed police. In the end, the four of them would be chased by the armed police. Escape? They were in Chinese territory. Could they escape? As soon as Ma conveyed his intention, he looked at the other two felons who were used to walking in mountains. The Kachin people didn't think much of it. 5367 lowered his eyes slightly and said, "Stop talking nonsense and continue walking." There was no response, which made Ma Gang a little disappointed. But soon, a smile appeared in Ma Gang's eyes. 5367, who had been walking at the back, changed his position with the Kachin people. He walked behind the idiot 3237. They were all a group of ruthless people. They had originally joined forces to escape. Now, there was one person in the middle who could implicate them at any time. Then, leaving him alive would be a hidden danger. Hidden dangers could not be left alive. They had to be eliminated. 5367's arm strength was quite amazing. He strangled Anya's neck with his elbow from behind. Magong wanted to help, but he didn't give Magong a chance. He didn't give Anya a chance to struggle. He twisted his elbow hard, and the crisp sound of broken bones came. Anya, who had just stretched out his hand to brush the branches in front of him, fell down. He didn't make a sound and didn't struggle for a second. He didn't even know how he died. It was very likely that he was killed by 5367 with a calm expression on his face. An hour later, Yi Qian and the others passed by the place where Anya was killed. While searching, Jiao Xiaodu saw a hand sticking out from behind a rock. Lu Wei, Hong Miao Miao, and Jiao Xiaodu were on guard. Yi Qian and Li Xian quickly slid down the mountain. In order to be fast, the two of them sat down and slid all the way down. Chapter 5697. Ma Gang clenched her teeth tightly. That's right, bringing along this stupid 3237 was indeed her biggest mistake. The regretful Ma Gang put away the gun and no longer pointed it at Angie. She was just trying to scare Angie. She didn't really want to shoot him. She knew very well what the consequences would be. Not shooting didn't mean that Magong would let Angie go. She wanted to kill Angie. Are we still going? If not, find a place to rest as soon as possible. Rest well and leave tomorrow. The Kachin man opened his mouth. He did not care who shot who. None of them were his people, so it did not matter to him who died. What he was most concerned about now was whether he should leave or not. If he didn't want to leave, then he would rest. It just so happened that he was very tired. They were all exhausted and didn't want to walk anymore. Ma Gang also didn't want to leave, but when she thought of the helicopter flying over her head during the day, she immediately said in a deep voice, "No, continue walking." After that, he turned to Angie, who was silent. "Sooner or later, you will die because of your own stupidity." If she didn't get rid of him, she didn't know if he would cause any more trouble. She was used to killing people with guns or knives in bed. She didn't know how to kill people directly. Ma narrowed his eyes and was about to kill someone with a borrowed knife. The helicopters that flew by during the day were all camouflaged. Those were the military helicopters of the Chinese Army. My boss said that the Chinese armed police will often patrol the mountains, especially during the big Chinese festivals. Their patrols will be even closer than usual, and they will be vigilant and alert everywhere. What if there are armed police patrolling behind us? 3237. Your stupidity will definitely attract the armed police. You've already made the same mistake several times. Once there's a beginning, there won't be an end. You'll definitely make the same mistake again. I'm sure of it. After saying a bunch of things, he finally got to the main point. With armed police patrolling, they would commit more crimes and attract the attention of the armed police. In the end, the four of them were chased by the armed police. "Ha! This is Chinese territory. Can you escape?" As soon as Ma conveyed his intention, he looked at the other two felons who were used to walking in the mountains. The Kachin people didn't think much of it. 5,367 lowered his eyes slightly and said, "Stop talking nonsense and continue walking." There was no response, which made Ma Gang a little disappointed. But soon, a smile appeared in Ma Gang's eyes. 5367, who had been walking at the back, changed his position with the Kachin people. He walked behind the idiot 3237. They were all a group of ruthless people. They had originally joined forces to escape. Now, there was one person in the middle who could drag him down at any time. Then, leaving him alive would be a hidden danger. Hidden dangers could not be left alive. They had to be eliminated. 5,367's arm strength was quite amazing. He strangled Anya's neck with his elbow from behind. Magong wanted to help, but he didn't give Magong a chance. He didn't give Anya a chance to struggle. He twisted his elbow hard, and the crisp sound of broken bones came. Anya, who had just stretched out his hand to brush the branches in front of him, fell down. He did not make a single sound, nor did he struggle for even a second. He did not even know how he died. It was very likely that even his expression was very calm as he was killed by 5367, just like that. An hour later, Yi Qian and the others passed by the place where Anya was killed. While searching, Jiao Xiaodu saw a hand crookedly poking out from behind a rock. Lu Wei, Hong Miao Miao, and Jiao Xiaodu were on guard. Yi Qian and Li Xian quickly slid down the mountain. For the sake of speed, the two of them sat down and slid all the way down. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you'll find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5697, Panda Literature. Chapter 5698. Trash facing these leeches that would make one's scalp go numb. The warriors shuttling through the forest pulled them down and casually tossed them aside. They couldn't crush it yet. If they did, the blood that the leeches had sucked would flow out. The blood would spread into the air, and there would be a faint bloody smell. When that happened, they would have to spend time to cover up the bloody smell. To them, who were in a hurry, it would be better to just throw it away and save time. The treetops swayed slightly. The silhouette was like a mountain spirit, silently and swiftly advancing. The five people searching, including Yi Qian, did not know when they would actually catch up. Perhaps they would catch up in an hour, or perhaps it would take several hours. Deep in the mountains and forests between the Sar River and the Mekong River in Myanmar, a few jeeps passed through the dense forest and finally stopped in front of a row of white walls and black tiles, which looked like the houses of the Jiangnan River in China. Two soldiers in military uniforms with rifles on their backs quickly ran to the second jeep, opened the door, and saluted the middle-aged man in the car. The middle-aged man wasn't tall, but he was well-built. His skin was dark, and he had a pair of eagle eyes that could intimidate people at night. He was General Min Lai, a powerful figure who had his own army. General Min Lai, who was walking in the middle with soldiers standing guard on both sides, had an exceptionally cold expression on his face. The corners of his mouth were pressed tightly together, and the aura he exuded as he walked made even the adjutant beside him feel pressured. This was one of General Min Lai's garrisons, and there were about 1,000 or so soldiers here. The officer in charge of this place had already come over to greet them. As soon as he approached and saluted, General Min Lai raised his hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Trash!" he scolded the officer. His voice was harsh and deep, like a cold current that poured in, causing the officer who had been slapped to reveal a terrified expression. Instead of lecturing the officer outside, General Min Lai entered the room and sat in the large chair that the officer usually sat in. He took off his military cap and casually tossed it to the adjutant beside him. The adjutant immediately caught it and held it for himself instead of handing it to the soldiers accompanying him. The accompanying soldiers were to protect General Min Lai at all times. They had to hold their guns in their hands at all times and the bullets in their guns had to be loaded at all times. If they noticed anything strange, they could fire immediately. When the officer entered and saw General Min Lai's dark expression, his heart sank. "I handed him over to you and told you to protect him well. You didn't do it and got caught by the police. I don't have to settle this with you. When you work for me, there will always be people who fall at the front." After that, she escaped. The adjutant personally contacted you and told you to find Ma Gang and not let her fall into the hands of other forces. In the end, you actually let her escape to China. Looking at his subordinate who couldn't even do a small thing for him, General Min Lai was furious. He suddenly raised his leg and kicked the other party's calf. General Min Lai was no ordinary person. His skills and marksmanship were top-notch, and he was also a boxer. His arms and legs were filled with strength. This kick sent the officer flying 2 to 3 meters back. In the end, he landed hard on his butt. His face was deathly pale, without a trace of blood. The Chinese armed police have been looking for a breakthrough for me. Ma Gang has always been in charge of the Chinese market. Now that she has escaped into the Chinese territory, once she is targeted by the Chinese armed police and interrogated, even if you kill all 18 of your family members, it will not be able to appease the anger in my heart. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you'll find this website. Thank you. Trash. Chapter 5699. Killing Intent, General. The officer, whose face was pale from the pain in his lower abdomen, was scared out of his wits. He crawled all the way to General Min Lai's feet and said, "General, I sent 10 soldiers to look for Ma Gang, but she didn't leave any way to contact her. When I found out that she had escaped into China, I didn't dare to hide it from you. I immediately contacted the adjutant and sent people into China to look for Ma Gang. As soon as they saw her, they would bring her back to see you immediately. General, Ma Gang is a very capable woman. She does things very strangely. She doesn't trust anyone except herself. I asked her 4 bodyguards, and they all said that Ma Gang had never contacted them. General, with Ma Gang's caution, even if she escaped into China, she wouldn't be targeted by the Chinese armed police. She would definitely find a way to come back." The officer believed that General Min Lai, whom he was loyal to, was not joking. He would do what he said. Ma Gang, this woman, he had cooperated with her many times. He had seen her cunning, and he hated this woman who was unwilling to share any of the credit. But now, the lives of his family of 18 were all in her hands. If nothing happened to her in China, his family would be fine. If something happened to her and she fell into the hands of the Chinese armed police, then his family, the officer didn't dare to think too deeply. He shuddered and said, "General, please give me another chance. Let me bring Ma Gang back to your side. Tell the people you sent to deal with Ma Gang as soon as they see her. There's no need to bring her back." General Min Lai gave the order. Ma Gang didn't trust anyone. Similarly, he wouldn't trust a subordinate who escaped to China and could still come back in the end. The officer was a little puzzled by such an order, but it was General Min Lai's personal order. He just needed to carry it out. "Yes, General." The officer immediately responded solemnly. He no longer had the important task of bringing Ma Gang back. Instead, he had the important task of killing her directly. Since it was the general's personal order, he could take this opportunity to kill Ma Gang, the woman he hated very much. The adjutant beside General Min Lai explained to the officer, "The police have already sent Ma Gang's information to the Chinese armed police and asked them to search for her. With the ability of the Chinese armed police, Ma Gang has just appeared, and the chances of her escaping are very small. If she really did escape, it's very likely that the Chinese side intentionally let her go. As long as your men see her, they must deal with her immediately. Don't give her another chance to escape. Ma Gang is very smart. You didn't succeed the first time, so it's hard for you to have a second chance." General Min Lai would not use a subordinate who was targeted by the Chinese armed police, no matter how capable he was. Ma Gang was very clear about this point. This was also one of the main reasons why she persisted in her journey and did not dare to rest at all. After dealing with Angie, Ma Gang, Song Xing, and Vala walked a lot faster. Logically speaking, A woman's physical fitness was definitely not as good as a man's, but Ma Gang was different. She maintained her speed and did not need the help of two men. Even if her feet had blisters, Ma Gang did not say a word. She walked like a robot, and her endurance was so strong that it surprised Song Xing and Vala. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you'll find this website. Thank you. Murderous Intent. Chapter 5700. The 10,000 Miles Red Star lived up to your expectations. Chapter 5700. Suicide. As for Yi, who had been taken care of by Song Xing, the three of them had forgotten about him, as if he had never appeared beside them. Until midnight, when the three people's climbing movements had become exceptionally slow, Ma Gang turned around to look behind her. The night was too late and the forest was too dark. No matter how wide her eyes were, she couldn't see clearly into the distance. It had been at least 10 hours since they had seen the Chinese armed police helicopter during the day. 10 hours had passed, and they still hadn't seen the Chinese armed police, so they should be safe for the time being. Until now, Ma Gang had suggested that they find a place to sleep and take a 3-hour nap. Song Xing and Walla didn't have any objections. They just nodded, indicating that it was okay. It was difficult to find a good place to sleep in the forest. The three of them were very vigilant as they slowly slid down the mountain. Hua hua, the sound of branches and leaves breaking all the way until they found a rock with its back to the sun and sat down. The three people who had been running for a few days were not clean from head to toe. Their hair was messy and their faces were dirty. Their bodies were sore and smelly. They were no different from the homeless beggars on the streets. They shouldn't despise each other. They should seize the time to rest. They were very hungry. Even if they were hungry, they had to sleep. Only when they slept would they not feel hungry. Let's see if we can sneak into the border town in the afternoon of the day after tomorrow. Once we enter the border town, our difficulties will be solved. Ma Gang sat down. Take note. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. She rubbed her legs that were so sore that it was difficult to take a step forward. She lowered her voice and communicated with the two people beside her. Do you have any contacts in the border town? They need to be very reliable. Song Xing was the first to speak. His voice was faint. No. Walla, the Kachin man, didn't have any contact with the Chinese side. Ma Gang couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She had, but she wasn't at ease. The conversation seemed to have ended there. The three of them didn't speak again. The night insects chirped beside them. The Kachin man used the knife in his hand to pick off the two blood-sucking insects on his leg. Then, he used the sharp knife to cut the blood-sucking insects. At this moment, Ma suggested that they find a place to sleep and take a 3-hour nap. The two men, Song Xing and Walla, didn't have any objections. They just nodded, indicating that they could. It was difficult to find a good place to sleep in the forest. The three of them, who were very vigilant, slowly slid down the mountain. Hua hua, the sound of branches and leaves breaking all the way until they found a rock with its back to the sun. Only then did they sit down. The three of them, who had been on the run for a few days, were not clean from head to toe. Their hair was unkempt and their faces were dirty. Their bodies were sour and smelly. They were no different from the homeless beggars on the streets. None of them should despise each other. They should seize the time to rest. Even if he was hungry, he had to sleep. Only when he was asleep would he not feel hungry. Let's see if we can sneak into the border town in the afternoon of the day after tomorrow. Once we enter the border town, our difficulties will be solved. Ma Gang sat down and rubbed his legs, which were so sore that it was difficult for him to take a step. He lowered his voice and communicated with the two people beside him. Do you have any contacts in the border town? You need to be very reliable. Song Xing was the first to speak. His voice was calm. No. The Kachin man, Walla, didn't have any contact with the Chinese side. Ma Gang couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She had, but she wasn't at ease. The conversation seemed to have ended there. The three of them didn't speak again. The night insects chirped beside them. The Kachin man used the knife in his hand to pick off the two blood-sucking insects on his leg. Then he used a sharp knife to cut the blood-sucking insects open. Chapter 5701. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5701. Heartbeats like a drum. Urban romance. Chapter 5701. My heart beats like a drum. Ma Gang, who had been vigilant all this time, closed his eyes and was in a half-asleep state. He wanted to completely fall asleep, but when he raised his eyes from time to time, Song Xing suddenly bumped into him. Ma Gang, who was originally leaning against the rock to sleep, was startled and instantly opened his eyes. His feet subconsciously curled up, and the heels of his shoes rubbed against the wet leaves, creating a very soft, rustling sound. Just as he was about to move again, he heard Song Xing's voice. Song Xing placed a finger on the corner of his mouth and said very softly, "Don't move. Don't talk. Something seems to have happened." Did something happen? Ma Gang's eyes widened in shock. She gripped the gun tightly in her hand and moved closer to Song Xing. "What's going on? Someone's coming?" "I don't know. Don't talk." As Song Xing spoke, he slowly turned his body. His movements were very, very gentle, so gentle that not a single sound could be heard. "All of you don't move. Let me take a look." Vala the Kachin was sitting in the same spot, but his upper body was twisted around, facing outwards. He wanted to see if there was any movement behind him. Hearing this, he slowly turned back, his back pressed against the mossy rock. He pressed down on his dry lips, opened his fingers, and slowly gripped the rifle by his leg. His fingers tightened, and he was ready to fire at any moment. Song Xing moved his body and carefully poked his head out a little bit. The forest that was shrouded in darkness was too dark. It was so dark that he couldn't see his surroundings clearly. Song Xing only felt that something was wrong. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Xing slowly sat back down, his breathing a little hurried. "Did you see anything?" Ma Gang asked softly. His whole body was tense, ready to escape at any time. Song Xing, who was slowly adjusting his breathing, shook his head and frowned. "It's too dark. I can't see anything. Don't sleep. Let's wait and see. Could it be 3,237? He didn't die and followed us here?" Ma Gang, who was no longer sleepy, had sweat beads on his forehead. "Before you threw him down the mountain, did you confirm whether he was dead or not?" The Kachin Wara replied, "No breathing, no heartbeat. It can't be Yongyi. It can't be 3,237. Don't make wild guesses. Don't move. Let's wait and see." Song Xing's hand that was holding the rifle was sweating. At that moment, he was very nervous. 67. Ma Gang said that she did not want to have any contact with the Chinese armed police. Similarly, he did not want to have any contact with the Chinese armed police. The Chinese armed police were like an iron tower that was so dense that there was no wind around it. No amount of money could buy them off. People like them had targeted the Chinese market many times, but they had never really made a move. China's control over drugs and weapons was so strict that if they were caught, they would be done for immediately. They found it inconceivable that drugs and weapons could be so easily controlled in such a large country. This was closely related to China's border defense forces. Without the presence of border guards and armed police, the Chinese market would definitely be in chaos. The armed police were a shield for the Chinese security. If businessmen, like them, wanted to pass through this shield, they would have to pay the price in blood. After paying the price, there would be no return. It would be a complete waste of effort. After a long time, they all knew that China was a forbidden zone for underground weapons. There were so many countries in the world and so many gun markets. Why would they only target China? Every time he stood in front of the boundary marker between the two countries, he only looked at the vast land in China. He had never thought of setting foot in it. Now that he had escaped to China, he only wanted to escape as soon as possible and not be caught by the Chinese armed police. Hopefully, there were no Chinese armed police watching them. Song Xing silently closed his eyes, his heart beating like a drum. Chapter 5702. The 10,000 Miles Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 5702. Meow Meow on the verge of exploding. Urban romance. Jaikoi Chapter 5702. Meow meow on the verge of exploding, the three felons didn't move again, but their approximate location had been locked onto by Yi Qian. Song Xing bumped into Ma Gang's shoulder. Ma Gang's shoulders curled up, and the rustling sound of the leaves rubbing against each other was instantly captured by Yi Qian. The rustling sound was very close to Yi Qian, very close. It was so close that Yi Qian slowly squatted down and tapped on a microphone. The four armed police soldiers who received the message carefully hid behind and looked at Yi Qian's location. Yi Qian, who was a little closer to them, moved his fingers slightly and made a few hand gestures that meant below the left side of the hill, within 10 meters in diameter. After the hand gestures, Li Xian, who was the closest to Yi Qian and could see her hand gestures, looked down the hill to their left. They were behind Yi Qian. Yi Qian said that within 10 meters in diameter, they needed to be at a distance of 10 meters, with Yi Qian as the center. Lu Wei and Jiao Xiaoda were at the back, and the two of them were the furthest away from Yi Qian. The two of them couldn't see Yi Qian's hand gestures. Hong Miao Miao's voice came through the earpiece. You two approach the left side of the hill. The squad leader and I will surround and ambush them. Yi Qian will suppress them from above. This was a tactic, and they needed to first alert the enemy. At this time, they couldn't not move if the enemy doesn't move. This was because they had night vision goggles that could observe, search, track, and identify the enemy from a distance. As long as the enemy moved, they could immediately lock onto the target and shoot. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Attack! The three felons who escaped didn't have such equipment to help them move at night, so it would be difficult for them to find the armed police soldiers in the dark. After the battle plan was arranged, the five people began to move. Lu Wei and Jiao Xiaodu walked slowly to the left side of the mountain. Both of them were like cats. Every step they took was silent. After making sure that there was no noise, they continued to take the next step. Li Xian and Hong Miao Miao were also on the move. Only Yi Qian didn't move. She stood at the highest position and observed the entire area. If she discovered anything, she would immediately report it. The air seemed to have become a little thin, and the entire atmosphere became extremely tense. It was like a plastic film that had been pulled thin and tight. With just a little more force, the entire situation would be broken, and a battle of life and death would begin. Behind the rock, Vala the Kachin made his move. He was a mountain man and had been hunting in the deep mountains and forests all year round, so he was extremely sensitive to danger. At this moment, he had already smelled danger all around him. He had to act. He was used to moving alone, so he didn't even greet Ma Gang and Song Xing. Like a monkey walking on the ground, he slowly walked down the hill. This was a slope. The mountain was bumpy to begin with. Other than the rocks, there were many other cover. Vala walked down. Even though Yi Qian was on high ground, he could not see everything clearly, including Vala's departure. Continue, Li Xian said softly. The few people who were moving slowly surrounded them again. Ma Gang's back was already wet with sweat. Her eyes were full of fear. She gently pulled on Song Xing's sleeve and pointed down the mountain. She also wanted to follow Vala and leave the rock. Song Xing could only see her movements through the haze. Then, he firmly shook his head and signaled Ma Gang not to move. He would let Vala attract the armed police's attention. Ma Gang took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She clenched the rifle in her hand and was ready to fight to the death. Yi Qian stared down from above. His gaze was like that of a beast hunting at night. He was calm and bloodthirsty. His finger was gently placed on the trigger. Chapter 5703. 10,000 Miles of Red Star did not disappoint. Chapter 5703, Line of Life and Death, Urban Romance. JQI Chapter 5703, Line of Life and Death. Time ticked by, and both sides were silently confronting each other. Ma Gang closed her eyes to prevent the sweat from flowing from her forehead into her eyes. She was very nervous. At this time, she also knew that there were people nearby. Who could it be? Without thinking too deeply, she knew that it must be the Chinese armed police. They were being targeted by the Chinese armed police. This was the worst situation, and she still encountered it. At the foot of the mountain, The sound of leaves swaying could be heard, telling the armed police soldiers that someone was heading towards the mountain. Li Xian, Hong Miao Miao, Lu Wei, and Zhao Xiao stopped in their tracks. Hearing the movement, Yi Qian, who could completely confirm the location, narrowed his eyes and whispered, "That's bait, luring all of us out. I've already confirmed the target's location. Leave it to me." Okay. Li Xian didn't think about it and immediately adjusted her tactics. Yi Qian will deal with the bait. Hong Miao Miao will deal with the enemy from above, and the two of you continue to approach. They had to be at least within 10 meters of the diameter that Yi Qian had mentioned. Not only would it be convenient for them to attack immediately, but they would also be able to see the target's line of movement more clearly. This was the case in a battle of life and death. Walking on a line of life and death, they would die if they took even the slightest step. He deliberately made a move and immediately hid himself, waiting for the bait to take the bait. Who knew that he himself was also, please note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes. In the eyes of others, he waited patiently until he found the target. Ma Gang, who was behind the rock, breathed a sigh of relief. In this way, would the Chinese armed police who were chasing after them all target Walla? Then, she could take the opportunity to escape. Ma Gang didn't think of staying. She aimed the gun in her hand at the Chinese armed police. Once they really fought, she had no chance of winning. Song Xing seemed to have seen through Ma Gang's thoughts. He moved closer to her ear and said in a voice filled with hostility, "Put away your thoughts of leaving alone. Without us, don't even think about leaving this place." The night in the mountain was very gloomy. The humidity in the mountain was still sticky. The voice that came to his ears was like an iron hook with cold light that suddenly came out of the sewer. Ma Gang's heart trembled fiercely. She pursed her lips and shook her head to answer Song Xing. None of us can leave by ourselves. Even she only wanted to try. Only by trying would he know if it was possible to leave alone. She had endured so many nights. She had suffered so much. She had suffered so much. She had been beaten, scolded, tortured. She had been thrown off a cliff and climbed back up herself. She had been thrown into the water from a boat and swam to the shore by herself. She had killed people with her own hands. She had sliced the flesh off the bodies of the people she had killed. Then someone had pointed a gun at her head and swallowed the raw flesh that had been sliced off. As she swallowed, she vomited. In the end, she vomited until her stomach was about to be puked out. She vomited until she lost half her life. She had endured such bitter and difficult days. Therefore, as long as she could escape, she believed that she would definitely be able to leave the jungle alone and stand in front of her master alive again. However, would her master, who had always been very suspicious, still want her? She wasn't sure. Therefore, she wanted to escape to Shima first. She had secretly bought a house there. There was money in the house that was enough for her to spend for at least 10 years. She would have more choices if she went to Shima. However, everything was based on the premise that she could leave alive. In order to live, she was willing to do anything. Live, she just wanted to live. When Song Xing heard this, he didn't say anything else. At the same time, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. Walla had already caused a commotion for 3 to 5 minutes. Why was there still no movement in the surroundings? Chapter 5704. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5704. Who is the Hunter? Urban Romance. Chapter 5704. Who's the Hunter? Could it be that his intuition was wrong? There was nothing wrong with his surroundings. Was he just overthinking it? No, that was not right. The Kachinwara was also acting strangely, which meant that there were definitely people around. However, these people were very alert and did not immediately fall for the trap. The Chinese armed police had always been vigilant. Song Xing's palm, that was holding the gun, was also covered in cold sweat. He had never thought that there would be a day when he would confront the Chinese armed police and even shoot them to death. He had never thought about these things before because he felt that if he did not get involved in the Chinese side, he would not go up against the Chinese armed police. He did not expect that he would meet the Chinese armed police in such a way and fight to the death. Below, someone was comforting Vala, who was waiting without a trace of anxiety. He was a very good hunter. At this moment, Yi Qian and the others were prey in Vala's eyes. Vala was very patient and confident when dealing with prey that was about to take the bait. Li Xian and the others were getting closer and closer to the area that Yi Qian had pointed out. The four of them were getting closer and closer. They needed to observe the surroundings for at least 3 minutes before they could begin the next step. Yi Qian was a little faster, but no matter how fast she would not make any noise and become a target for the 3 felons. It wouldn't be too late to make a ruckus when she was close to the target above. Yi Jian's hands groped in the fallen leaves for a few times as she was very close to the target of the shaking branches. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. He held a medium-sized stone in his hand. Yi Qian narrowed his eyes and threw it at a bush. Walala! The sound of gunfire suddenly rang out, instantly breaking the silence of the night. It wasn't Yi Qian or Vala who opened fire, but it was Ma Gang who opened fire. It wasn't Li Wei and the others, but Ma Gang who was frightened by Yi Qian's distraction and accidentally pulled the trigger. Song Xing's expression changed as he cursed under his breath. He raised his gun and jumped out from behind the rock. If he continued to hide behind the rock, he would be a pawn. Ma Gang also knew that he had made a big mistake. Shocked and anxious, he also jumped out from behind. Their movements were so loud that Li Xian, Lu Wei, and Jiao Xiaotu, who were 10 meters away from them, noticed them and opened fire. Bang, 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 bang. The bullet shot out from a muzzle, leaving a trail of fire behind it. It tore through the curtain of the night and headed towards the dodging shadow with the aura of the Grim Reaper. This was blind shooting and suppression, not accurate shooting. The 2 people below were surprisingly quiet. Yi Qian didn't move again, and Vala didn't move either. Both of them were hiding in the dark, waiting to see who would make the first move. There was still one person who didn't move. Hong Miao Miao didn't move. He was in a hidden position. Once he opened fire, he had to shoot accurately. At this time, he was crawling on the high ground, holding his rifle and aiming at the enemy's position through his night vision goggles. The gunfire was very intense, and the bullets were continuous. Ma Gang and Song Xing couldn't even raise their heads. They didn't even have time to choose a new hiding spot. They just held their rifles and shot into the forest. Vala quietly pulled a leaf and put in his mouth, chewing slowly. A mountain breeze blew past him, bringing him a cool breeze. It was so comfortable that Vala even grinned. He felt that the wind was comfortable and made his sweat disperse quickly. But he didn't know that the wind carried the sour smell on his body and floated into Yi Qian's nose. The unpleasant smell floated into his nose, and Yi Qian also laughed silently. Left for o'clock, the location of the vent. Very good, she knew the hiding spot. Chapter 5705. The 10,000 Miles Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 5705, Fierce Glint. Urban Romance. Jacob Chapter 5705. Fierce glint if Vala knew that his hiding place was exposed by his body's stench after not bathing for a few days, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Yi Qian had a faint smile in his eyes. Now that he knew the location of the fugitive, it was time to act rashly and alert the enemy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good idea to continue wasting time with him. Yi Qian moved again, trying to find a place where he could directly shoot at the target. After investigating, he found that the opponent was extremely vigilant and didn't allow him to directly shoot at her. Then, he could only deal with him in close combat. Yi Qian's dark eyes, which were darker than the dark night, flashed with surprise. Once again, he moved closer to the target that he had accurately locked onto, until he picked up a small piece of rotten branch at his feet and threw it less than 5 meters to his left. The rotten branch streaked across the night and hit the bushes 3 meters away. Walala! The sudden sound made Vala, who had been hiding, smile. In the end, he still lacks patience. The prey is starting to move. Next, Let's see how he deals with these prey one by one. How about the Chinese armed police? The Kachin Vala, whose confidence soared in an instant. After reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes. Vala pulled out the dagger at his waist. He was no longer quietly hiding and waiting like before. Since he had found the prey, he had to attack and get rid of the prey in one fell swoop. At this time, Vala was more like a hungry wolf that had found its prey. He was excited, and impulsive. He only slowly and quietly moved towards the place where the sound came from. Yi Qian, who had a panoramic view of Vala's movements through his night vision goggles, saw that Vala was quietly moving towards the place where the sound came from. The smile on his face was like a blooming tulip in March or May, growing wider. In the end, he couldn't wait any longer and came out of the hole. Yi Qian tapped on the headset. He first pointed at himself, then pointed at Vala, who was still moving. He then made a gesture to resolve the issue. When Hong Miao Miao, who was hiding high up, saw this through his night vision goggles, he instantly understood. Yi Qian wanted to tell him that she was going to get rid of the Kachin Vala, so that he could pay attention to his surroundings. After seeing Hong Miao Miao's okay gesture, Yi Qian slowly moved her legs. The snake had just come out of the cave and was still on high alert. If it sensed anything strange, it would immediately change direction and escape. Therefore, she needed to be lighter and faster than Vala the Kachin. She could not give the snake a chance to escape. Under the cover of the night, Yi Qian moved forward quickly and gracefully. Now, she was the one who made the first move, not the target. Seize the initiative, strike first, and gain the upper hand. When the Kachin Vala appeared in an exposed position, Yi Qian took the initiative to attack. Her palm carried the cold wind unique to the night in the mountains as it slashed towards the back of the Kachin Vala's neck like lightning. Vala was caught off guard, and before he could react, he fell into the bushes like a broken trunk of a tree. This made Vala's eyes flash with shock. It didn't come from the direction of the sound, but from his left. What did this mean? It meant that the other party already knew where he was hiding, and the sound just now was intentional, hateful. Vala, who had fallen, had an ominous glint in his eyes. Very good, Chinese armed police, you're dead tonight. He was dead meat. Chapter 5706. The 10,000 Miles Red Star will live up to your expectations. Chapter 5706, Just Try. Urban Romance. Chapter 5706, Just Try. Vala wasn't afraid of the Chinese armed police. He wasn't afraid of being targeted by the Chinese armed police, nor was he afraid that he would kill the Chinese armed police. In his heart, other than his own people, he didn't care about anything else. Yi Qian didn't give Vala a chance to counterattack after his successful sneak attack. He leaped and pounced on Vala, who was knocked down by him. For Vala, who had lived in the jungle for a long time, Yi Qian's sudden attack made him see stars. It was as if many stars appeared above his head, and he almost fainted. However, the thick skin of the people living in the mountains helped him block a lot of the force from Yi Qian's palm, allowing him to maintain a bit of consciousness. Otherwise, if it was a normal person, Yi Qian's attack would have caused him to fall to the ground. Vala, who had been hunting in the jungle for a long time, rolled on the ground and dodged Yi Qian's subsequent pounce. Vala rolled on the ground and dodged. Vala got up with one hand on the ground and raised the cold dagger in his hand to stab at Yi Qian, who missed him. He was still yelling fiercely. Vala spoke in Burmese, which was very familiar to Yi Qian, who had participated in the rescue of the kidnapped girl. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Yi Qian rolled on the ground and stood up, replying in Burmese. Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time. Woman. Vala's body paused unnaturally when he heard the reply. Clearly, he never thought that the Chinese armed police would send a female armed police on a mission. What was even more unexpected was that the force that hit him just now was from the petite figure in front of him. The pause was just a momentary pause. For the vicious and merciless Vala, as long as it wasn't one of his clansmen, let alone a woman, even if it was a child, he would mercilessly take out his dagger and stab them. What's more, in front of him was a Chinese female armed police officer who had almost taken his life. At this time, he only had one thought, and that was to kill this female armed police officer as soon as possible, and then support Song Xing and Ma Gang who were fighting with the Chinese armed police officers. They would escape from the Chinese territory and return to the village where their own people were. During Walla's momentary pause, Yi Qian nimbly dodged Walla's all-out stab. Taking the initiative to attack had always been Yi Qian's style. His left palm quickly and accurately struck Walla's dagger-wielding right wrist. "Ah!" Vala cried out in pain as the dagger fell into the bushes in the distance. Almost at the same time, just as the dagger left his hand, Yi Qian's tightly clenched right fist struck Vala's stomach. "Ah!" Another heart-wrenching cry came from Vala's dry throat. Are all the Chinese armed police officers so powerful? Vala, who had never fought with the Chinese armed police before, had a look of surprise on his face. He had never taken the Chinese armed police seriously. The Kachin people were used to using knives, and they were the representative of ferocity. When they showed their knives, it was like the god of death had fallen. But this time, Vala didn't get up like last time. Instead, he clutched his stomach and knelt heavily on the bushes in front of Yi Qian with doubts in his heart. But Yi Qian didn't want to give Vala a chance to stand up and fight back, because she also needed to end the battle quickly and support Li Xian and the others who were fighting with Song Xing and Ma Gang as soon as possible. Chapter 5707. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5707. It must be very cool. Urban Romance. Chapter 5707. That must be awesome. Just as Vala was kneeling on the ground, Yi Qian followed up with a sweep of his right leg, once again striking Vala's neck on the right side. Vala raised his head, a ferocious glint in his eyes. He blocked Yi Qian's leg and used his iron-like hands to try and grab Yi Qian's leg. Chinese armed police, hee. Tonight, let's see who will die, you or me. Vala laughed fiercely. The leaves and bushes shook crazily, like two fierce beasts fighting. Yi Qian could understand Burmese. He raised his eyebrows and sneered. "Of course you'll die and I'll live." After saying that, she kicked her feet up and grabbed onto a branch as thick as her arm. Using her arms as support, she channeled all her strength into her legs. Whoosh! That was the sound of a sweeping leg, sweeping out the wind. Crack! The branch was broken by Yi Qian's leg, and a thin branch viciously hit Walla's face. Immediately, it left a burn mark on Walla's face. It was very painful. Yi Qian chuckled. "How do you feel?" "It must be very satisfying." This was a psychological tactic. In the past, Yi Qian did not like to talk before a fight. He felt that talking and fighting at the same time would make him look unsteady. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, but later, her Captain Xia told her that talking while fighting was a tactic. She had to know what to say and turn what she said into a weapon to weaken the other party's confidence or anger the other party. She had to take the opportunity to find the other party's weakness and wait for an opportunity to strike. She had to end the battle quickly and preserve her strength to enter the next battle. Yi Qian remembered what Captain Xia said. The criminal she was facing should be the Kachin Vala, a guy who lived in the depths of the jungle for many years. Hunting was his specialty. From his point of view, she was the prey in Vala's eyes. As the prey, she had to quickly finish off this hunter with great stamina and endurance. The prey killing the hunter, not bad, very exciting. The sounds of fighting in the forest were particularly loud. Hua hua. The swaying of the branches never stopped. In the middle of it, there was also the sound of leaves breaking, which made the whole atmosphere even more thrilling. Vala had underestimated the enemy. He did not take the Chinese armed police seriously, nor did he take Yi Qian, who was a woman, seriously. Underestimating the enemy on the battlefield was fatal. He had no idea that he was not facing the armed police, but a special forces soldier. Yi Qian kicked him hard in the chest. Vala's entire body fell backward, and his back slammed into a tree. He hit his chest, and his blood boiled. Before he could make his next move, a black shadow passed through the leaves, like a sharp arrow on a bowstring, heading straight for him. At this moment, Vala's pupils contracted fiercely, and there was a trace of panic. Vala subconsciously squatted down, who knew that Yi Qian would kick him directly in the throat. Huh! A low hiss came from his throat. Yi Qian put all his strength into his left leg and stomped hard on Vala's throat. Vala's neck vertebrae cracked, and his head seemed to have shifted in an instant. He fell motionless, lying quietly in the bushes. Yi Qian retracted his left leg and carefully walked in front of Vala. He stretched out 2 fingers of his right hand to check Vala's breathing and pulse. After confirming that there were no signs of life, he made an okay gesture toward Hong Miao Miao's position in the dark. Vala, who was quickly taken care of, did not understand until his death how the best hiding spot he had found was discovered. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.